He is Jon Batiste. The album We Are is out on March 19th. Recently the musical consultant for Pixar's Soul, and you know him from Colbert's house band. A double Grammy nominee who will find out how he did in March. And on Friday there's a new song called I Need You. Welcome, Jon Batiste.
Hey, what's happening with you? How you doing?
Good. So we were just talking a moment ago. You and I spent a day together in a Fort Worth studio with Gary Clark Jr. and Leon Bridges. These are gentlemen, much like yourself, who were made their name in a traditional form of music and then have pushed beyond that and have at times struggled to push beyond that, the expectations that come with starting off in a traditional form of music and all the purists. How much time do you spend thinking about that kind of thing?
I think about what music exists in the world and where my artistic place is. I try to contribute music to the world that is something that only I can do. And I think when you do that, you continue to elevate. I don't think about genre, even though I've studied the greats of the past in the hope to not only be as great as them, but to make something in my time that is anew. I'm like a musical archaeologist in that way. I study the past, but then I try to create something that's completely new based on what I find. And that's not something that I've thought about in terms of being constricting, but more something that's an opportunity to introduce new sounds and new ideas to my time.
In soul, I mean, representation is a big part of soul. I mean, not only are people seeing leading black characters in a Pixar film, but they're getting young viewers probably one of their first real looks at jazz. That's something you probably thought about.
Definitely. I think the responsibility, first off, there's scarcity. You don't hear any jazz music in a children's film, especially the biggest animation studio in the world, Pixar. You don't see jazz music as the central character in a children's film of that stature ever. I didn't have that when I was a kid. I don't think a lot of people had that. And then when you think about the scarcity of black representation in films of that stature for kids and the way that shapes their mind and who they are as they grow and the possibilities. That's, again, I'm all about world building and possibilities. I'm not thinking about, obviously, there's someone else in charge. Pete Docter is the vision of this film. He was in charge of leading all of us. Jamie Foxx, Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross, all of us were following his lead in that way. So he wanted to expose jazz in particular in that lineage. But I'm thinking about jazz, but also what ways can jazz be made anew? Celestial jazz, jazz blended with Nine Inch Nails jazz, like jazz that's not actually rooted in just a historic retelling or introduction of jazz to young people. But let's introduce the world and a whole new generation to the idea that jazz is completely modern. And that's what I wanted to do. Not necessarily consciously, but that's always the struggle for me, is to open people's mind to something that they didn't know that they actually are in love with.
I Need You is fundamentally built on a jazz premise, but again, this is an opportunity, if things go the way we think they are, to have a song on the radio and on television. I mean, this is born for placements, that takes jazz somewhere new and sort of slides in the back door. I mean, because to me, it's the kind of song that's like a Gnarls Barkley Crazy. It's a song that sounds like nothing else right now,
right,
but is going to work with everything else.
Right. That's the key. It's not just to introduce something new to be different. You got to introduce something new that people need. People have to have something that is irresistible, it feels inevitable, but they'd never thought of it. And I think, the song, I'm thinking about my whole album that I made in that way. Like We Are is a protest song, but you could play it in a club and people will dance to it. I Need You, this song we're talking about, it has like this doom 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 doom. Like it's a dance song, it's like a pop radio dance song, or you put it in the TV placement. But it also, you could play that bass line in the 1960s in the Chitlin circuit, and the whole juke joint will be jumping. Like it's black social music from the early 20th century mixed with this kind of almost farm rap, like rural rap and storytelling. And then I'm singing and I'm playing saxophone, and it's all under 2 minutes, under 3 minutes. So, that's my vibe. Like, how do I create these tapestries and these energies that can fit across different social dynamics, whether it's the club or the protest, whether it's the farmland or the chitlin circuit in the juke joint, or the radio, or like on mass media, TV, CBS. How do you do that?
Even after the summer, even in the aftermath of George Floyd, there were still people telling people like you to shut up and sing. I mean, that didn't go away, and if anything, that got louder. Even if we look at this Capitol situation, that's rooted inherently in racism. I mean, that's the driving force that sent them into that building. How do you stay hopeful?
I think the key to hopeful thought is to feed yourself with realism. Because the more you know what's happening, and the more you know about this one and that one, and you're communicating, you have honest dialogue, you have nuanced dialogue, meaning that you're not just following headlines, or you're not just subscribing to the news station or the political party that best suits your ego. How do you have a real perspective of what's happening? And if you have a real perspective, then it's the best chance at being hopeful, because you have a real way forward. You have a realistic plan of action. And that's how I live. I just don't want to be caught up in the idea of something. I want to know what it really is. And even if I don't like what it really is, if I don't like what these people are doing or what they're saying, but I know where they're coming from, then I have the best chance at understanding how we can best move forward. Because at the end of the day, we all in this together. Whether they want us to shut up and just keep singing, or whether they want to burn this down, or they want to carry guns, at the end of the day, we're on this planet together. If something goes wrong, like you look at the coronavirus, imagine, something even greater than that coming to attack all of us, and it ain't discriminating against anybody in their political party, their belief. We're going to have to come together. And global warming, all these things that are happening in the world are real. And that is what we have to always remember. This political thing, this is short-lived. It may destroy American politics, but at the end of the day, we still going to be here with a destroyed political system together. So I mean, realism is what makes me hopeful.
I think about, part of your platform is sitting on a stage in front of a lot of people. Especially here in New Orleans, these are cities that have a live music tradition that's threatened right now. How much time do you spend thinking about that, about what these next couple of years are going to look like? I mean, eventually there's going to be a Roaring 20 situation where we're all out, but right now that seems further and further away, and the ball keeps moving further down the court.
I feel so vital right now, and I feel so excited and creatively charged. And I see a lot of musicians who they're trying to figure that out. And I think the key right now is to not worry about it, and to try to find ways, of course, to make a living, but just try to find ways to stay creatively charged and invigorated. Because I think that once everything comes back around, you see people writing long lead Broadway projects. I'm working on a few Broadway plays right now. One about Jean-Michel Basquiat. You see people working on albums and collaborating across the internet in ways that people didn't have time to do before. You see people doing these long lead projects for when we come back, and not necessarily thinking about how we're going to come back, or all of these different ways. And of course, you got to keep the lights on, but I think the balance is keeping the lights on, but also keeping the internal creative light on. And if you can figure that out, then I think once everything comes back, it's all going to fall into place. I don't know how or when, but thinking about that is just going to continue to dim your creativity.
Can you imagine, though, what a second line in New Orleans after this has all been put away is going to feel like?
Oh, I'm going to lead it, and it's going to be the biggest one in history. We got to do that, man. I've always, before the pandemic, I was planning on doing, I don't want to give too much detail away, but just wait.
All right. The album is out on March 19th. It's called We Are. He's Jon Batiste. Thank you, sir. We'll see you here at some point, hopefully.
I know we will.